This is Win TV News, bringing you the news that matters. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky entered the White House chamber to lengthy applause and a standing ovation on Wednesday evening. This was Zelensky's first trip outside the Ukraine since Russia invaded the country almost 10 months ago. Both he and President Biden were confident in the bipartisan support for the U.S. to continue to aid the Ukraine, as it will continue after the new Congress convenes in early January. Zelensky commented saying, quote, "I hope my words of respect and gratitude resonate in each American heart." The visit comes at a crucial moment in Ukraine's fight with Russia, which has begun to target civilian infrastructures as temperatures plunge for the winter. The U.S. Postal Service has announced a historic $9.6 billion investment over the next 5 years to electrify its delivery fleet. The USPS investment includes electrifying 75% of its next-generation delivery vehicles, or NGDVs, and a commitment to acquire 100% electric NGDVs starting in 2026. The investment, which includes $3 billion in funding from the Inflation Reduction Act, installs modern charging infrastructure at hundreds of USPS facilities and electrifies 66,000 delivery vehicles. The Council on Environmental Quality Chair Brenda Mallory commented saying, quote, "The U.S. Postal Service planned to set the pace for other leading public and private sector fleets. It is clear that the future of transportation is electric, and that future is here." The co-founder of cryptocurrency exchange FTX and the former CEO of Sam Bankman-Fried's hedge fund Alameda Research have pleaded guilty to fraud. Caroline Ellison, the former CEO of Alameda, and Gary Wang, co-founder of FTX, are both cooperating with prosecutors. The Securities and Exchange Commission alleges that Wang, quote, "created FTX's software code that allowed Alameda to divert FTX customer funds, and that Ellison used those funds for Alameda's trading." The SEC said it had agreed to settlements with both Wang and Ellison, which are subject to court approval.
Good day, everybody. My name is Richard Elliott. Thank you for tuning in to Win TV, Washington Informer TV. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Councilmember Jocelyn Rout from the city of Bladensburg.
Hello.
So the first question I'd like to ask you, Councilmember Rout, what makes Bladensburg a unique town in Prince George's County?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Bladensburg is very historic, and a lot of people don't know that. So we have what's called the Bostwick House, which was a prominent owner, Christopher Loudness. He was he owned a market, and so with the market, he had lots of things for ships. And so what we know is that the Anacostia River was actually a port as it relates to the slave trade. And so a lot of slaves that entered Maryland, DC, and Virginia came in through this port. And Christopher Loudness lived in this home called the Bostwick House. And we own this home, and it's amazing. There's still some artifacts in there that shows you that slaves lived and were serving and working in the town of Bladensburg. Christopher Loudness, he sold like rope for ships and a lot of ship items for merchants to, he was a wholesaler, and so he would, sell to a lot of the merchants and needs. And so a lot of people don't know that about Bladensburg. We are also, we border Washington, D.C. We can walk to DC from the town of Bladensburg, and we are a very culturally diverse community. So we have many different people, many different walks of life, older, younger, retired, just starting out, fresh new moms, retired senior citizens. So we are a thriving community, and we're just an awesome place to come visit.
Okay, thank you for that answer. All right, for the next question, following local legislation pushing for rent stabilization and rent control, I believe that you've introduced an ordinance or a piece of legislation in your town to try and fight for that. Can you explain your motivation, your interest in this, and what you're trying to do for the citizens of Bladensburg and residents of the county as a whole?
Thanks, Rich. So we are not in the legislative phase yet. So we, members of the Bladensburg Town Council, we are investigating what path forward. We know we want to do something about rent stabilization, but we don't know exactly which way we're going to go yet. So we're in the investigative stage. So we are looking at past legislation. We're looking at legislation that Maryland, the state of Maryland is, proposing. So delegates proposing that legislation. We're also looking for guidance from the county council. So we wanted to really bring some legislation that will protect tenants' rights, in addition to have some safeguards for our landlords, because those are our customers as well. They pay taxes, and so do the residents. But what we do know in Bladensburg is that the end of the public health emergency definitely brought on a lot of landlord tenant issues that we are trying to navigate. So we're seeing rent hikes. We're looking at utility charges that are appearing on people's bills, and that's not regulated. We're also looking at fees that are just coming up. Parking's been free in the past. Now residents have to pay parking, which the burden right now is on the residents. And so what I'm leading the initiative with my colleagues, Mayor James and Trina Brown, we're trying to really understand what's the best way to move forward. I'm really looking to our sister municipalities just for their guidance and support, because what we don't want to do is just make the wrong decision. And so we're very excited for the new legislative season so that we can be able to see what's proposed coming out of the gate, and then we will be able to bring forth some legislation here in town. Rich, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Wait, 1 second. Perfect segue to the next question. Yesterday, we saw Council Member Dernoga elected as council chair, while Blegay elected as council vice chair. This is going to have a lot of changes for the county. What do you plan on working with this new council on, and what do you see the difference between this council versus councils of the past?
Thank you for this great question as well. So what we do know is I am really, really, really excited about the People's Agenda, which was presented yesterday. And one of those topics is supporting working families. And Bladensburg is a thriving community. We have a lot of working families, blue collar workers, entrepreneurs. That's the bulk. We have the working class here in Bladensburg. So I was really happy to read and see that. And I do think that this council that's seated at Prince George's County, they have fresh new ideas, and I'm really excited for that. And they understand the grassroots movement, how important it is to listen to the people. And so that's what I think that the difference will be, is that we have people not only that will listen to municipalities and what we need, but we also will be able to really do some great things.
Okay, thank you. I think that the new council is going to be a very interesting opportunity to cover, and we'll definitely check in with you and other municipal leaders continuously. As I mentioned in the interview with Martin Mitchell, zoning powers outside of the city of Laurel, which he represents, are dictated by the county. How would you like to pursue zoning changes for Bladensburg? Are you going to try and push for it to be done at the municipal level? Are you going to try and ask your council member for certain changes? What do you view as the ideal process for zoning powers for your municipality?
We have, Jolene Ivy has supported us with our request in the past for our legislative priority. Bladensburg, we really need zoning authority because we know what our community needs, and it only makes sense for municipal leaders to be able to say, with the approval of the council, what goes on. So in Bladensburg, I will be re-advocating and re-pushing once again for a seat at the table. So the county council, they can do what they normally do, but we need to add a process with checking in with the municipal governments. For example, we in the town of Bladensburg, we have about 4 7-Elevens. Now, if someone would have talked to the council, we would have said, we may not want to approve this fourth 7-Eleven. We may want to, look at another type of store. So at this point, municipal government, we just get a package and say, this has been approved. I mean, we know what's going on, but I think there needs to be a part of the checklist. Let's check in to see what the municipal government wants and what they want to do, because we have a vision for our community and we know what our community needs. Right now, we have a great 450 corridor that runs from the district all the way to Annapolis. We would love to see more eateries, more family-friendly opportunities. We're receiving a new library that's almost done. It'll be done in the spring of 23. And so what we want to see, what our residents are telling the municipal government, it just only makes sense to have a municipal seat at the table. And that's what I'll be pushing for this next legislative season.
All right. Thank you, council member. Final question I'm going to ask you: with the historic election of Maryland's first Black governor, first Black attorney general, and first woman executive officer, what do you expect is going to come of their terms, and how do you plan to work with them during the legislative session in Annapolis?
Thank you. So with this historic, this is very historic, and it's needed because with the first Black governor in the state of Maryland, we have an opportunity to enact true change for communities that have been overlooked, such as the African American and Latinx communities. A lot of times our needs are overlooked, and that has been in the past. And so, with a lot of this diversity coming into leadership, I'm really looking to see change for everyone, really not leaving affinity groups out. We need to really focus on families and what families need. And so I'm excited, but I will be looking for our leaders to create opportunities for the less fortunate, so that we can be able to all say, this is our Maryland, which I think because of the lack of diversity, there were some groups that were left out. I'm confident that with our new leaders, first Black governor, first Black treasurer, first woman as lieutenant governor, there will be more opportunity for minority groups and for women.
Okay, thank you. This was Win TV signing off. We had Councilmember Jocelyn Rout of Bladensburg, Maryland in Prince George's County. Thank you, and tune in again next week.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Win TV. I am honored to be with newly minted council member Walla Blegay. She's representing the good people of District 6 in Prince George's County. And we have a lot to talk about in a very little time. So let's first start with happy holidays. How are you doing, council member Blegay?
I'm doing good. We've been hitting the ground running here at the council. On day one, which was last week, our first legislative meeting, we put over 20 bills. We put it was repeals to some of the legislation that was passed that would bring the sprawl in our community. Saturating our streets with townhomes, bringing development that's really unwanted. We also put together some bills that would address some of the concerns that people had: the tobacco shops in our community, the oversaturation of public storage, and also looking at health, looking at the health impact for all land use matters. So we really have been busy addressing many of the issues.
That is awesome. And, I really want to sort of talk about that in a second. And sorry, I'm looking down. I'm sharing this stream, and all those tuning in, y'all know my role. Sharing is caring. So go ahead and share this stream. But Before we even get into more of the nitty gritty, such as you all being on the roll and getting some of this legislation that you've been so passionate about moving, I want to first know more about the people of District 6. Who are they? Where is it? And tell the folks out there how they can tap in with District 6.
District 6 includes, it's really the heart of Prince George's County. It includes most of Upper Marlboro, Largo. Downtown Largo is one of the biggest projects that we have in district. It includes Westphalia, the newest developments in Upper Marlboro area. It also includes Forestville, Mitchellville, Woodmore, parts of Fairwood. And we really have a really rich district. When people say, talking about the wealthiest county in Prince George's County, many of them are looking at good parts of District 6 where you have minorities and African Americans who are doing very well, doctors, lawyers, engineers making a difference in the community and bringing the wealth into Prince George's County.
And so, with that said, and such a large number of people and communities that you're covering, I know a lot of issues are near and dear to your heart. We talked about some of your issues, such as the closing of the tobacco shops and et cetera, sort of beginning to move in these meetings. Tell the folks a little bit about the other issues you hope to address on the council and how we can follow them.
Well, one of the biggest issues is development. District 6 is really the bed of development in Prince George's County. We have one of the largest projects in Prince George's County, the Blue Line Corridor, which includes downtown Largo, which includes developing up and down the 214 corridor from near the Hampton Park down to Addison Road Station and beyond when you get into District 7. We're also looking at Westphalia. We're looking at the places that new areas where we're building, and that's one of the things we're focused on is bringing quality development to the district. Many people say that you have African Americans, you have different groups doing very well in District 6, but you wouldn't know from the development here. So we're trying to get more quality development. Let's bring the amenities closer to home, and this is not only the nice stores and grocery stores and retail, but also the green space that we can take advantage of, the trails. You have Watkins Park in District 6. So we're looking at bringing quality development closer to home in Prince George's County. And that's what we're focused on. And then also crime issues is increased, especially when you look at Forestville. We're looking at how do we provide more services for mental health. One of the biggest issues in our community is really addressing some of the concerns that family people, many of the families in our community have. And we know that when we look at when we investigate what's going on, it always goes back to mental health.
Oh, so it sounds like you are busy, busy, busy. And it's so many important issues, and I see your face light up when you talk about what you say is the heart of Prince George's County. And so I have to take us back a little bit. Why did you decide you wanted to represent the people of District 6? Tell us a little bit about your background and why you decided to go into the world of politics and run for the Prince George's County Council.
Really was to improve my community. I saw we have beautiful homes, beautiful families that come here, but you don't want them to ask, like, what else do we get from our area? We want to bring amenities. We want this to work. We want people to look at Prince George's County, a minority majority county, with people are not used to being front and center and having a wealth or nice or the funds for the houses that we have in this county. But we want them to actually be able to say, I can also shop in my community. I can go and walk and support a small business in my community that's selling quality things. I can have quality of life closer to home. And that's what I really wanted to make sure. And also, I was a legal advocate. I was counsel for the DC Nurses Association. So from that, I became an advocate talking about issues regarding justice, regarding healthcare, regarding a lot of things in our community. And I'm bringing that type of advocacy on the council. I can't hear you.
Oh, excuse me. Can you all hear me now?
can hear you now.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry. I had to mute the camera because my dog decided that he wanted to. We're going to say amen to Councilmember Blegay's reasoning for wanting to join the council because he has been making noise galore in the back. But tell us a little bit about how we can tap in to some of the ways that you're addressing these issues and bringing this development and follow the development that you're bringing to the county.
Well, we're at this point put forth the people agenda. Last week, I talked about the people's agenda, outlining the importance of what how we're moving forward as a council. I was voted in as council chair last week, vice chair. And then part of being a vice chair was talking about our agenda, transparency in our government, provide increasing services to residents, bringing quality development into our community, protecting our environment and our green space, focusing on supporting small businesses and more. So we're really trying to do a lot to support many. And I definitely think that we want people to check out our website at pgccouncil.us, and you'll see a lot about what we're doing. And our next legislative meeting is January 10th, and we have more good news coming.
Well, the Informer is the place to get the good news out there. So, Councilmember Blegay, please promise that you will come back and share with us your good news.
I will do that. We'll do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you to all those who are tuning in. As I always say, sharing is caring. So go ahead and press that share button. It's important to get this information out there. We are the Informer, and we are here to get you all the news and information important to you. With that said, happy holidays, Councilmember Blegay.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Happy holidays to you all.
Happy holidays to everyone. All right.
This is Richard Elliott with the Washington Informer, and I'm happy to introduce you all to Councilman at Large Martin Mitchell, who represents the town of Laurel, Maryland. Nice to have you, Martin.
Thanks for having me, Rich. Thanks for having me. As Rich said, at-large councilman in the city of Laurel, also known as the Cannabis Councilman. Pleasure to be here.
With the recent passage of the Maryland cannabis legalization question, what are some of the things that you personally are going to advocate for in upcoming legislation this year?
Great question, Richard. Several things. Of course, as I was mentioning, while getting the word out for question 4, the work has just begun. And passing it as a ballot measure is the beginning step. Now, a lot of those same people who passed it, with 70% or better approval, the thought is they have to continue to be involved, to continue to be educated, and to advocate for the best interests of everyday people. Because the thought is like with this medical market that we've seen the market be swallowed up by the establishment, people who had money, people who had influence, people who had connections, not necessarily people who were the most impacted. And so with recreational, it's important that, some of these most impacted people have business stake in the industry, not just being, a small time dispensary, but have actual opportunity to become a large dispensary and, to become a cultivator. But also the ancillary businesses, the ones that help fuel the cannabis businesses, the delivery services, to make sure that we're represented in, every facet, but also to make sure that no one's criminalized. Like for me, I think I was pushing no legalization without, full, decarceration, decriminalization. The thought is we want our brothers and sisters to come home from cannabis, for cannabis related, nonviolent cannabis related charges. But we also want to make sure that no one is sent to jail for possession, for conspiracy, distribution, all of the things in which we'll see in this legal market. We want to make sure that we provide a true pathway to the quote unquote legacy market. And then, the last thing I would say is to make sure that, the communities actually benefit from this money. We want to make sure that it's not like the casino money and says it's going to trickle down, it's going to go towards education. We're going to get a bunch of new schools built, those half-hearted promises. The thought is like, we want something like it trickles back to the community. And for me, I'm asking for it to do it in the most local way. So for like the municipalities to really have a stake in like how the money is being spent, and to, incentivize them to, allow licenses, in their area, right? Like because of this tax base and the direct involvement that they can have in how this money is being spent. And, I know that is probably long winded, but, with several other things. But the main thing is decriminalization and making sure that there's true equity in the business aspect of it.
Thank you for a great answer. Don't worry about the length. They can always be edited and such. Okay, to go to the second question. In the town of Laurel, you've been pushing for rent stabilization legislation. What does this mean for an average tenant? What is your legislation planning to do? And what is, I'll call it the alternative legislation planning to do?
Sure. I'm glad you highlighted the issue of, tenant protections. Essentially, tenant protection that is the most important is rent stabilization. We've seen extreme rent hikes from 20 to 55% in the city of Laurel and in many surrounding areas. I know that I saw a Washington Informer story about Bladensburg and some of the rental challenges with new landlords there. The funny thing is, that company was a landlord in Laurel, and that's where a rent strike popped off, a few months ago. And so, the thought is like these problems are happening everywhere, but in the city of Laurel, we've helped seniors from getting evicted for ARPA money and having to negotiate with advocacy groups and landlords and, local legislators coming together and negotiating with the landlord. And so we've had at least 3 instances in the city of Laurel, one being outside of city limits is at Westgate. So that's that same owner Sweb Partners LLC that we were talking about from Bladensburg, the same ones from New Jersey that was causing trouble, and I think a few other areas. But the thought is there were successes there, but those were short term. And I remember the first time we, helped those seniors from getting evicted during COVID, because the rent was going to be doubled to quote unquote market rate. The thought is that was short term. And I remember a colleague asking me when I brought up the question of like, well, not even really the question, but I presented, hey, we need this amount of ARPA funds to save these amount of residents for this amount of time. And, we've already negotiated, we're there. And basically they weren't against it, but they, weren't, I guess happy to do it necessarily because from their perspective, they said, what is going to be done in the long term, right? And my answer to them was come up with legislation. With legislators, we should come up with legislative solutions for these extreme situations. And so, as you've been seeing in a lot of these press hits, you've been seeing the rent revolution, not only in Laurel, but many places. It passed on the ballot. Rent stabilization passed on the ballot this November in several areas. My proposal for the everyday person would basically mean that I'm asking for a 3% rental cap. And the thought is 3% is reasonable. Right now, CPI is crazy, inflation is crazy. And that's really the reason I went with 3%. But with the caveat, if landlords need to raise it more for capital improvements, property tax increases, the thought is like they would apply for that. They would go through the process of applying, but they would show their work. They would, hey, I need a 12% increase, but here is my loan. Here is, here's how soon I'm trying to pay it back. So you would have these direct numbers And the thought is like helping out the renters helps out the community. So, you know, Richard, I think that we're all in Laurel trying to help out the community. And my co-sponsor, Carl DeWalt, he's made that pretty clear that we should be putting the renters first, even though, we love our landlords and we love the business interests. The renters are the community, the residents are the community, and, they keep the community going forward. And so, we're talking about that 3% vacancy control, and we're also talking about a rental registry. The alternative proposal, I wouldn't say it's the most alternative proposal, but mine is focused more on rent stabilization, vacancy control, and establishing comprehensive rental registry similar to Syracuse. The thought is the mayor's asked for 4%, or his proposal is calling for 4%, or 3/4 of CPI, 3/4 of the CPI, whichever is lower. So not bad, a percentage point off. The thought is we've heard from several landlords and even more of their lobbyists, right? Landlords, to be honest with you, they don't like regulation, and they will never like regulation. And, after long conversations with them, that really is the consensus. And, for me, I will hear out anybody, whether it be a renter, whether it be a tenant, whether it be a business owner. But, I'm not going to let the landlords dictate, how we're going to legislate for the citizens of Laurel. Because if they had their choice, we wouldn't pass anything at all, or we would pass something that allows double digits, without a process. And I don't think that's fair. That's not transparent. And it's definitely not in the best interest of Laurel, because we don't want to displace people.
In Prince George's County, only the city of Laurel has local zoning powers. What does this mean for residents of Laurel versus, for example, residents of Capitol Heights or Bowie or Seat Pleasant about your ability to control zoning decisions?
Zoning is huge. As you brought up, we are the only municipality out of 27 in Prince George's County to have our own zoning rights, meaning, when we develop, we don't need the same permissions from the county, and from the state to have this development. So it really gives us control over, how we develop as a city. And, we're a city of, 30,000, on the census, right? But we have $33 million annual budget. So, we are a city that's doing well, and we're a city that's going to continue to develop. But I think that with that power, right, of the zoning, we also have to be, cognizant of how we develop and keeping developers honest, right? Because the thought is like, we don't want Laurel to become, just a development haven and not giving back to the community. One of the first questions, I like to ask the developer is, like how many fixed rate set asides, do they plan to provide in this development? What does that look like? Or, they're talking about affordable, have they had a conversation on deeply affordable? So, even though we have zoning is important, never want to give it away, especially, as a city. And the thought is, it's a lot harder to take something away than, to give it to somebody. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if I answered that whole thing, but yeah.
You're good. All right, for the next question.
Oh, wait, Richard, one of the things I wanted to say was when we talk about zoning, we have our own zoning. And so I mentioned to the city council how we should start exploring tiny home communities and, as far as alternative housing, but we would have to change some of the zoning ordinances to allow that. I've seen several places where that could work for the homeless community, the veteran community, intergenerational community. I've seen in Atlanta where there's a community that developed more like luxury tiny homes, and it sold out even before they finished developing. And when I say intergenerational, you have young people graduating and getting out of school, starting young families, and then you have people who are downsizing, empty nesters. And so that is one great thing that we could look at when in terms of zoning in the upcoming years.
Glenn Ivey, the former state's attorney, was recently elected to Congress with a blowout margin over his Republican Republican opposition. It is likely that there will be Republican majority leadership in Congress in the upcoming term of Congress, making it unlikely that legislation is able to pass. What things are you going to try to partner with Congressman Ivey on for the benefit of members of the Laurel community and of Prince George's County?
That is a great question. I still haven't sat down with Congressman or Congressman-elect, soon to be sworn in. Of course, as you know, Rich, I was supportive. I endorsed Congressman Ivey and, helped him with staffing, right? So used a lot of my consulting skills and network to make sure he had awesome poll coverage. But one of the things I will say to make sure that the city of Laurel, we get a lot of federal dollars coming to us, right? Because we've made sure that Laurel showed up for him, but he also understands how important Laurel is to the state of Maryland, but also the Prince George's community. And so for me, I've been pushing him on the cannabis thing, as you know, respectfully, right? So, I want to make sure that, we get cannabis done at a federal level. But I still don't know his position on it. I know that he's a former state's attorney. I know that, Glenn's a smart guy, but I do want to make sure that he is an advocate for legalization. And, one of the things that I've said, Richard, and, you can quote me on this, is like our fight at the federal level maybe should be rescheduling or descheduling cannabis as opposed to the legalization. Of course, we should, decriminalize, but of course, the legalization, because if we descheduled, I think that would be that would change a lot of the harms that we see. And the thought is, it's like it might be a lighter lift than working on full legalization and working on descheduling. So that's just something throwing out there. But one of the other things, I'm gonna make sure that Congressman Ivey makes sure that knows that Laurel, we don't support the maglev. If he ever hears whispers of the maglev, definitely let me know, but definitely not to support it. And then the thought is, it's like, even at a federal level, I wanted to talk to him about what tenant protections we can look at, right? Like we've seen a lot of emergency tenant protections during COVID from the different states, cities, and even the federal government, right? And so like, what tenant protections can we look for long term? One of the things I've realized in the state of Maryland is like, handshake lease agreements are legal. Like you don't need a written lease agreement. Like handshake agreements are illegal. Yes, I know it's crazy. It's something that we're going to look at in the city, but I know it's something that Mary Lehman and Delegate Melissa Wells, Delegate Mary Lehman, Delegate Melissa Wells are going to look at this session. And so, I will say that there's a bunch of things that I will talk with him about, but definitely cannabis, stopping the maglev, making sure Laurel gets funding for the next few years to come. We definitely want to finish building our multi-service center that's going to basically help house people who need housing, but also help people who just need service every day, right? There might be someone who's unhoused who needs a shower. They can come take a shower there. There could also be, a 24-hour, living facility where, people will be there providing wraparound services. So we need more funding to get that off the ground. But I would love to talk about revitalization of Main Street. So I hope that that's one of his focuses as well. And we have a shared vision for that. And so, just a couple things that I would love to chat with him about. And I'm sure we will, sit down in the new year.
All right, thank you. So this is Richard Elliott closing out an interview with the cannabis councilman, Councilman at-large Martin Mitchell from Laurel, Maryland. We're closing out for Win TV. We will see you again next week. Thank you so much.
Well, hello, Miss April Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, Misha. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's so wonderful to catch up with you always. I feel like every time I talk to you, you give me just more and more Black girl magic. You teach me something. I will tell the people, for all those tuning in, the first time I met April Ryan, I was at the NABJ conference in New Orleans. That had to be like 2016, 2017.
It was 2017.
2017. Okay, yes. And I was working for a different publication, also in NNPA, one of our NNPA publications. And I told her, I love you so much. I really look up to you. Thank you for everything. And she said, little girl, aren't you supposed to be at your work gala doing work and not partying? And I said, yes, I'll be there. My flight is at 6 a.m. And she said, good. Wonderful to meet you too. But every time I get with you, you open my eyes to so much. And I wanted to just honor everything about that as we uplift this exciting news, which is your new book, Women Will Save the World.
Black Women World, an anthem, because we're going to say it over and over again.
Oh, Women Will Save the World, an anthem. Let's get it right. Women will save the world.
No, Black women will save the world, an anthem.
Yes, Black women will save the world. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, why you decided to go with Black Women Will Save the World, an anthem, as this title. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty of the book itself.
Why I decided, because it's obvious. We show up. We show up in tremendous ways. We show up and change dynamics. We change circumstances. And we've been doing it ever since our inception in this nation. We have this moment where we see Black women at the highest rungs of life in government, receiving awards in entertainment, just almost everywhere, and doing things, and no one is marking the moment. And if we don't mark the moment, we lose the momentum, and we want to keep this going. And the problem is that we've been here for hundreds of years. And just in 2022, we are saluting Black women. We are a community that brings in everyone. We love people up and then send them back out. But when it comes time for us to celebrate, we have not had that. And I said, wait a minute. And I wanted to mark the moment. And I want people, not just Black people, but all people, to understand who we are, what we have done, because we celebrate everyone. It's time for everyone to start celebrating us, to celebrate us. This is not a moment to say, oh, we're not celebrating you, we don't like you. No, this is a moment to say, hey, let's shift the attention to us for a minute. We always focusing on everyone else. Let's shift the attention to us and celebrate us, especially during these holidays, especially as we are a lot of times the ones in the kitchen. So, I mean, that was just an aside, but it's true. But, it's time for our celebration. It's way past time for our celebration. It's way past time for these spaces that we are rising to. It's way past time, long overdue. And it's time to mark the moment and celebrate.
Absolutely. And so, I know that you have helped us realize over decades the Black women in the White House, in Congress, behind the scenes, who have been running the world, who have been making the decisions. And so, first of all, tell me a little bit about you and your place, decades in this world, as a political correspondent and as a White House correspondent, and seeing how Black women have been able to navigate these spaces.
So for
And
25.
my dogs are with you all the way.
Yeah, my dog is laying down. Last time your dog said something, she lifted her head, but she's like, okay, oh well, whatever. So I've been in this business for over 30 years and at the White House for 25. The longest serving Black woman journalist at the White House. It's not by happenstance. I'm there for a reason and I'm thankful. Never understood how I got there. never understood why I'm still there, but all of it has happened. And I ask questions to help people along their way on a daily basis. And I'm thankful that thus far people have really appreciated and taken the work in for what it is. An effort to help, particularly the Black community, understand what's at stake, understand what's on the table, and understand how you can best be served, from the White House or from Washington, from Capitol Hill. So, it's not about me, it's about the story. But along the way, I guess, being the longest serving Black woman journalist at the White House, it does a little bit, come to you. I'm humbled.
And I know that, well, first of all, before we even move on, can we just get a moment for longest Black woman White House correspondent? I mean, truly, it's quite incredible. But I know that, and we've talked about this before, it seems almost a level of injustice, if you will, that in all the time that you've put in at the White House, there was a rise to fame during a time in which there was for lack of a better word, a bully running the show, at least the face of the show in the White House. And so I'm curious, did that ever bring a level of frustration to you, or a level of just saying, look, I've been doing this for 20 years before Trump ever stepped in this White House.
So you said, wait a minute, you said rise to fame because of Trump. I wasn't a household name before, but I had a pretty good career and I was doing pretty well before Trump. The only reason why people ever, let me put it this way. A friend of mine from Morgan State, where I attended college, one of my HBCU fellow alum, said to me, he said, April, you always had a name.
Yeah.
But once Trump came in, you became white famous. He said, you're not just Black famous, you're white famous. I said, what's Black and white famous? So what he meant is, like, I'm a household name now. People know the name, and sometimes, or if they don't know the name, they know the face, and they understand, it's not about me. It's about the story. But unfortunately, Trump put a spotlight on me because he wanted to use me as an example of what he would do to reporters. But I was told by some very well-known, high-ranking Republicans who I cannot name, they said that he never thought I was as formidable as I was. And one of the reasons why people know me is because I stayed. It's not because I ran and what he did. I stayed because it wasn't about me. I stayed because it was about a community that was underserved, that had the highest numbers of negatives in almost every category. The reason why they know my name is because I stayed under the vast assaults, because I stayed when they mocked me, when Fox News targeted me, when I got death threats. I stayed. It's not about, oh, you're famous because you're on a reality show. No, my name is known because I stayed in the midst of the unthinkable from a president of the United States and his minions, and still reported. So I want to put the perspective on the well-known name. I don't want to say famous. I want to say because my name is well-known. It's not because of the entanglements or the hate heaped on me. It's because I stayed in the midst of the unthinkable, not knowing what each day would be.
Y'all, I told you, this is why I love talking to April Ryan. The gems, the amount of just inspiration that she's able to give. You stayed, you fought the fight, and you're continuing to ask the hard questions. What's next?
Well, you know, this book, I'm still on the book tour. If I would have left, and I want to add to this, if I would have left, I would have never seen 25 years. And I never even imagined, oh, around the corner, I'm staying to stick it out. I stayed because I did nothing wrong. So now, as you know, we are still in a crazy time where the former president, who heaped a lot of that hate on me, wants to come back. I'm going to stay some more. I did nothing wrong, so I don't plan to leave. I've opened up the office for the GRIO, the political office. I'm going to continue. HarperCollins Amistad has offered me another book to write. I don't know right now where I'm going to go with that. I want to sit down and breathe and take this one in, because I did a book tour in the midst of COVID, you know, and we're still dealing with COVID. I am excited. I'm supposed to have a show next year on the GRIO. I'm getting married next year. I mean, I'm a business owner. We have a candle company, Jare Candles, Jare candles.com. And that's doing well. That's crazy. We went straight to businesses and not to consumers. We've got stores just raking up, coming to us. And that was out of a tribute to my mother, to my late mother, that a lot of the book was dedicated to. And a lot of the book came from her knowledge and wisdom. The current book, Black Women Will Save the World, an Anthem. And that was a part of my grieving process, I guess, because she died of AML leukemia. And I haven't really talked about it a lot. And I was still grieving because I was pregnant with my daughter at the time. So she passed from AML leukemia. And what I did was I said, okay, I couldn't grieve. So I said, let me do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to celebrate her in a way. And I worked through, as part of the working through my grief with her from her death. The doctor told her, the oncologist told her that she could no longer burn fires in the fireplace. She could no longer have barbecues, you know, cook on a barbecue grill. And her favorite thing, well, fireplace, all of that was her favorite things, but one of the most favorite things, she loved candles. And they said she could not burn paraffin wax anymore. And at that time, we couldn't find soy. He said, get a soy candle. We couldn't find soy. 15 years later, you know, we find soy everywhere. And I said, you know what? Let me work through this. And it's crazy. My fiance, who's a retired naval officer, if he hadn't gone into the Navy, he would probably be some child's art teacher. And he, I know, right?
That's awesome.
I know. So he was like, oh yeah. He said, let's do this. He said, because, you know, I make my own candles. I said, don't you ever tell a woman that you make candles. So he got me into it. We were doing it as a hobby, and our friends and family were like, these are really good. And next thing you know, Ramunda Young over at Mahogany Books, a dear friend, she was like, let's check this candle out. The rest is history.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just a lot on the table right now. But my main focus is politics, and I'm a mama. So yeah. I've got 2 daughters. So, you know, I mean, life goes on. There's more to life beyond just focusing in on the 9 to 5. For me, it's not 9 to 5, it's longer, but there's more to life than just focusing in on work and focusing in on politics. I'm a real person who has real friends, who has real hurts, who has real desires, who has real happiness and joy, and who's trying to live her life beyond what you saw a few years ago. Yeah.
Well, you know, I am just so amazed. First of all, congratulations on all things. But as I hear the candle line, the getting married, you're still on your book tour, you're working as the bureau chief with the GRIO, you're doing so much. And we know that Black women will save the world. That's why you've created this anthem and this homage to them. But how do we take care of ourselves?
I'm so glad you said that. Oh, that's one thing, because we're always there. We're always moving and doing. And what brings you peace and joy is what you should use to take care of yourself. For me, my peace and joy is stillness. For me, my peace and joy is creativity, maybe drawing or writing or getting in that soaker tub with my favorite mocktail. You heard me, I said mocktail.
Yes.
For each person it's different, but finding time to make sure you pour back into yourself. You got to pour back into yourself, because if you don't, you will wear out. And I'm creating more of my space, doing more things that I love, doing the things that bring me joy. That's putting back into me, taking care. That's self-care. It is just chilling, watching my favorite show, reality show that just takes my mind away, reading, just taking time to find what brings you joy, what gives you the peace to restore what has been given away or taken away through that week, month, or year. It's that restorative moment. It's not just taking a vacation with your loved ones, and it's about your personal vacation, maybe an hour a day or 5 minutes a day. It's about that restorative moment that you need. And if you've never celebrated yourself and taken that time, you need to start, because you will feel it in your spirit, your body, your mind, your every space. I have learned to do more restorative than ever before.
And look, my dogs are, I think, giving you an amen. That's what I'm a hope. They don't give me any rest, but I know the one thing that I do love, and the respite that I take, is reading. And
Yeah.
so I can't wait to get Black Women Will Save the World, an anthem for myself, but I also want to give it to the other women in my life.
It's great for yourself and for holidays. I'm telling you, so many people are picking it up and they connect to it because of the stories. You will find yourself in these pages, and you will find others in these pages. And a lot of people have cried. I'm not going to give a spoiler alert, because I'm not going to spoil it, but just get it.
Okay. I will. And I love that so much of this is an homage to your mom and her legacy. So for all those out there, like, get your book clubs together, get the women in your life and the men in your life reading why Black women will indeed save the world, and why we should be celebrating those who already have and continue to do so. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the people of WIN TV about either what's happening in the White House, some important things for us to know, looking out particularly relating to the Black community, but in general that we should know about politically, or about the book, or about April Ryan, or do we all get an invitation to your wedding next year?
What you should know: enjoy the holidays. Happy holidays. Life is not, every moment is not promised, but live it to your best ability, but also along the way, take a moment for yourself to celebrate yourself. Bishop T.D. Jakes asked me, he said, do you celebrate yourself? And I was ashamed to say no. Since then, I have. I love to celebrate myself. And I think we all need to, because when I'm on the tour, I ask people, very few women raise their hands. It's time for us to recognize who we are, and to be counted and be seen, most importantly.
I have the chills. I have all the inspiration that I needed, and I hope that all of our WIN TV folks do as well. April Ryan, the Black woman who has already saved the world. I know she has in many ways given us the truth telling that we all need. And I thank you so much for your time today, for you continuing to stay in the fight. You said that you're not going anywhere. So we'll be continuing to tune in and follow you and read your stories, and just continue to be informed and inspired by you. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays to you.
One more question, and I don't know if you all saw the private chat.
No.
I asked,
Oh, yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
This is my question. I read part of the book. I couldn't read the whole thing because I didn't know who was going to do the interview. But I saw, I mean, this book is not just for women, but it's,
Exactly.
But so my question was, why did you choose Cory Booker to write the foreword instead of another woman? So I'm gonna take myself out, and I want Misha to ask that question again. And okay. And
yep, got you.
Oops.
So I know that you said this book is not just for women, but this is, I know, an homage to women. We saw Senator Cory Booker do a beautiful homage to women this year. I believe during the seating proceedings for Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. But we know that he's been a champion of women. And so why did you decide to tap him as the person to write the foreword for your book?
You just gave the answer. You just gave the answer. Then Biden nominee for the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, when she was before the Senate confirmation hearing and the Republicans, when she was before the Republicans in that committee hearing, she was attacked vehemently. And there was one Black man who showed up and reset the moment, reset the table. He spoke of her, he spoke of Black women, and Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker really shook the world with that. So many of us cried because she was treated so unfairly as a Black woman in America who has a pedigree. If you take out race and gender, her pedigree stands up against anyone. But yet they wanted to mark her race and her gender. Cory Booker reset the table. And that's the reason why I used him for my foreword. And I could think of none other but Cory Booker for this moment and for this book. And he's been such a great supporter of my work. And I so appreciate him for all that he's done. And this book, again, this book is about Black women. Everyone can speak on Black women, to include Black women. And that's what I want. I want people to understand this is not just a Black woman singing to Black women, we are great. This is a Black woman singing to America a love letter. Black women are amazing. A Black man singing to America, Black women are amazing. And if anyone else wants to join in on this song, they are welcome to. And I could not think of anyone better than male senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker, to deliver the foreword for this book.
Thank you so much for that answer. And again, for your time. I cannot thank you enough.
Hi, this is Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer newspaper and host of WIN TV. I'm so glad that you all have been with us throughout the year. I know that this is time to get together with family and friends. So I wish you a happy holiday season, a wonderful new year, and we look forward to joining you again in 2023. Season's greetings.